Hi, it's Marcy again, Marcy Lamberson, and today we are going to be making a seahorse, which is surface decoration on top of another bead. So we'll have our base bead and then we will draw the seahorse on top of it. So if you will follow me, I am going to put my phone into its special holder and away we go. I'm going to reverse the phone also. Here we go. Boom. Okay, so we are in and you can see my tabletop. Let's just adjust this a little bit. There we go. And I want to be sure that you can see my hands and how far out I can go when I make this. All right, so a couple of things. We have some of the Sim new glass here that you can find at Ed Hoy's. It's available now. And of course I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's this beautiful translucent color, and this will be part of the base bead. And who knows, we might want a little bit of transparent turquoise over the top also. So we've got that one too. And I have a little bit of opal yellow. This one is some of the lighter of the opal yellows that I've seen. It's opaque also, and it has a tiny bit of variegation in it, usually. Let's hope. I'm looking on the end of it and I can't really tell what we'll have. And I also have a little encased stringer for decoration. I have a little bit of pulled green right here. See how tiny it is? I thought we might want a little seagrass or something on the base bead. And then I have some encased stringer that has, I think it's white with a little bit of pink over the top of it and purple. And then I have periwinkle that has a little bit of ink blue over the top of it. We might want that too. So we have a couple of options in case that's what we want to use. And let's get started. I have my trusty ancient stump shaper with brass, and I like using this edge a lot with it, and sometimes I'll marver on that. This is my cote marver that looks like a trowel. I particularly like it because the handle is very comfortable for me to hold, but also I have this wide width for marvering, which is nice. And with it being metal like this, it also, the glass doesn't just kind of brush over it. It kind of tugs on it just a teeny tiny bit. It's got a little bit of a grip. And those are the main ones that I'm going to use. Let's get started and you'll see my ancient torch. This torch I've had since I first started lamp working. This is a Nortel Minor, and it's just really handy. It works for so many smaller beads. I do have other torches that I use, but this one is the one that I use the most often. Just making sure that my glasses moved away from the end of that torch. And let's make this on a 3/32 mandrel. I use Dip and Go, Blue Sludge, something like that. And it is a very sturdy, heavy-duty bead release. Okay, so I haven't used this glass yet, but it sure is pretty. I love the translucency of a lot of the colors that Creationist Messy has come out with recently. And I think I told you those are at Ed Hoy's, and I think they will have them at some of their distributors also. So we're just going to lay it on, and then we're going to press it. So it's going to be like a barrel at first. And you can see how I am perpendicular to the mandrel when I lay down the glass. It lays it a little bit straighter if you kind of have a problem with the ends. If you make it into that T shape, without any angles, you kind of get it to lay down a little bit easier for you. And a lot of times I'll keep the bead warm and then melt some more glass and then start putting it on. It just seems a little bit easier than possibly tugging on the bead release. Got a nice fat wrap there. We can marver all of it into the shape that we want afterwards. And I want a long shape and with plenty of width also. because you know the seahorse kind of has a few extra swirls and stuff on it. We need plenty of room to get the whole design on it. So we're going up a ways and we're going to fill it in. This is the least exciting part of the whole thing, but definitely necessary. And then once I press it, we'll make sure that we feel like it's long enough for what we're going to do. And here's the thing. You need to have enough canvas of glass to be able to draw on it. And so think of it that way. Some people like to work a very, very petite, but it's hard to do surface decoration on some of those if you have a good size picture or item that you're using for decoration. So think about it in proportion and size of what you're comfortable with, but also what your goal is to achieve. And just keeping the base bead warm, and it's funny looking now, isn't it? We're filling in that center area. Then we'll heat it up and marver it and then add some more glass. Pretty easy this way. And you can see that my mandrel is below the flame, and then my rod kind of, it feeds through the flame to the mandrel. Let's add a little more glass. Because I'm using a 3/32, of course I need to keep that bead a little bit thicker than if I was using a 1/16 mandrel, because you always want the width of the mandrel on either side of the mandrel for thickness of the bead. That's kind of a good rule of thumb to think about. Sometimes it's more, and that's never a problem, and if it's less, be extra careful. Makes it pretty fragile sometimes too. You don't want that. Okay, we're just adding a little more, and then we will marver it. And I'm not too concerned about it because I can always add more glass if it seems like it's not the right width, or I can move glass around. That's what's fun about this. The heat, with heat and glass and the right tools or the right gravity, you can move the glass just right where you think it needs to go. Okay, so we've got a good basic amount on there. Let's lay this glass down. We'll take the Cote Marver. We're going to heat up the bead, not so hot that all of the glass wants to move to the center, but enough that we can move the glass. And remember, we're just moving the exterior of the glass. We don't need to move the interior. That's already in the right place. It's this stuff on the outside that we need to even up and move around. And also, it's a time to think about what you want when you're making your beads. Sometimes people like to have non-perfect beads. And when I say perfect, I don't, non-symmetrical, that's probably a better term for it. Or they might want it thinner at the top or thinner at the bottom, or make it into like a bicone and then flatten it a little bit. There's so many options. So you do what makes you comfortable. I'm just making the bottom a little more even, and I'm debating, do I want some of this turquoise all over? Do I want it just in one spot? Do I want it going towards the top? And I think towards the top sounds like fun to me. So, and I thought about it. Do I want a full amount of it? Do I want to make some and then move some down? There are lots of ways of doing this. But one of the fun ways is to heat up some and then to touch down gently just a little bit, and then turn around your bead so it's like threads going around, and it adds a little bit of color, not a ton of it at once. Let's see whether we can make that happen here. So we touch down, it's pretty hot. And we're just adding some of the turquoise transparent to it. Can you see how that looks? I'm hoping I got it in the right place, and we're going to melt it in. That way it just adds a little bit of color, it diffuses it, and you don't have a thick swipe of it, you've got little bits of it. So I'm heating it up and we're going to marver it in. And don't forget, when you do that, you're adding more glass to your bead, so it will thicken the area that you have added it to. And make sure you keep the area where you haven't added any color also warm. You don't want something happening to it. Okay, so do we want something on the bottom too before we start flattening it and doing everything? I think what I want to do is to flatten it a bit, but first I'm going to check my ends. And I have this tool, which they don't really make a whole lot anymore, sometimes through Carlisle, but I know that there are a couple of locations that have an equivalent, and Jackie Marr with Kiss My Glass in California has some that will work also. I think it's called the D Shaper, but I'm not positive. Okay, so we've got a basic shape, and now we just need to heat it enough to use our mashers. So let's warm this up and keep moving, huh? We've got a lot to do. All right, so we're going to gently mash it. And if it doesn't mash enough, or you need to add some more to it, do it. It's your bead, you can do whatever you want with it. I'm taking off the chill marks first, and that's why I go in closer to the cones, not too close. And then I take the ends and make sure my ends are where I want them, just with a quick tap. And don't forget, you can make a tool similar to this. You know those salad forks that you can get at the store inexpensively? They have that between the tines. You can take a hammer and flatten it down and have your own tool. Or I'm sure a pair of white pliers or other items will make something similar also. You can get creative with that. Okay, so you can't see a lot of the turquoise. I think afterwards we'll see a little bit more once it cools down. But I want to add a little bit of dark green along the bottom too, because I have it here and might as well. So this will be the bottom, and I'm just going to add a few little bits that look kind of seagrassy, you know. And what I'm doing is I'm touching down and then gently pulling up, except for that one right there. And you saw me pull it right out of the flame to stop what it's doing. Well, guess what? That bit of seagrass just kind of went across the bead, didn't it? And I'm heating it in. And I'm heating the other side too to make sure that it stays warm. And I don't have a lot more of that. Let me see. We'll add a little bit to the other side also. So if I don't like this, I can always make this the back side. But I think I kind of like it with the seahorse over the top. And we'll do a little bit on this back side also, where we heat up the stringer and we're just pulling off to the top. And see how it gets thinner at the top if you kind of pull it away? You don't want this to be too hot where it sits like fat dots. You want to kind of move a little bit quickly. And you probably don't want a piece as small as this, because boy, it's getting toasty on me. Let's add just a little bit more. Okay, good enough. We've got a little decoration to go underneath the seahorse. And you could add coral or other things below. Here's the thing though, if you add too many colors and it might compete a little bit with your seahorse. So what you want to do is think about that and think, will the colors compete? Is it something that I want to do, or do I want to just go ahead and do it? So you get to think about that. Meanwhile, what I'm going to do now is take a little bit of this glass and I'm going to pre-pull into some stringer so I have it ready while I'm working in case I need just a little bit of something. And the shape that we're going to be making is kind of like a cursive capital E, just kind of like it. And it may be facing forwards or backwards, I'm not sure, it all depends. I'm a lefty, and I like it to kind of go backwards, but I would think that right-handed people would generally like it to go forwards. So whatever you're most comfortable working with, that's what you need to choose to do. So I'm heating up some glass on my rod. I'm heating up my mandrel with my bead release, and I'm going to touch down, push in, pull out, let it cool a little bit, and then I'm going to pull it into a thinner stringer. Not too thin, but thinner than what I'm working with. And I'm watching the color, see how it goes white, and then it starts getting the color back. And then I would disconnect it from the rod and go back and heat up my bead so it doesn't get too cold. And then I'm going to burn this off. And it is going to cool on my table while I'm working. So I'm going to make kind of a backwards E, and then I'm going to go and fix it a little bit more. And I'm debating first, what do I want on the back and what do I want on the front? And I'm thinking this just might compete a little bit too much. So we're going to go here and around like this. So I'm looking to see what shape I want, and I'm going to have a dot for the head and then a line going around. And I'm going to make the line first, and then I'm going to add the head. So we go like this and around. And pull up. See, you can do that shape, can't you? And you don't have to have too thin of a stringer. You just need something kind of along that line. And so next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bigger head on the top. We got the good start of it. I'm just adding a little bit more glass. And then I can always press it and move it around into shape. But this isn't too far off from what I want. And when you're thinking about things or wanting your glass to cool a little bit, you can always go and heat the back side of your glass. So I'm hoping that my stringer is cooled off now. I checked and it's fine. I want to make that little trumpety snout thing. So that's going to be a dot and pulled out at the ends. And if in doubt, heat the back. So I'm going to touch down as a dot, pull down a little bit, then I'm going to go back and heat the back side, so then I'll be able to look to see where I am, and then I'm going to pull this open. I have just this tiny little bit on the end, and that's what I'm going to use to pull the very bottom out and give it kind of a wider amount. See the shape? We're almost there. Okay, so they have kind of a good little tummy on them, and I want to add a little bit more for a tummy, and that's why I have this thick stringer here. I can add a little bit more into the tummy area and fill it in a little bit and just connect it. See how easy that is? Boom, we got it. And while that's cooling a little bit, we heat the back side and the ends and keep everything warm. You can add a lot of heat from the back side because you don't really have anything that can't get all melted in. And meanwhile, that is cooling. And you can see whether you want to add any more. I wanted to add just a tiny bit because it didn't look quite as even. But see, we're there with the basic shape. So we still have some room for a little bit of a fin, and we're going to put in an eye and a little bit more decoration. And that's what this purple was for. But it is longer than I need, so I'm going to flame cut a little bit of it off, and that will make it easier. So for its back fin, it's got a little fin that goes back here. I'm going to make a couple little lines that just go like kind of a V shape. I'm pressing down and pulling in towards the center. Looks like a heart almost, doesn't it? I think I want at least one more though. And we can't have the purple all by itself, so let's add some for little spiky looking things on it. Just a little bit. They're dots that I'm pulling out and pushing down on the base bead. We're going around in a circle on it. Make a couple, heat the back. Make a couple, heat the back. Here we go. See, now if I put some down here, it's going to compete with that. So let's just skip an area and come back down here. So you can also use them if you have an area that you want to cover. Just cover them with those. Sometimes you get seahorses gone wild, so you got to be careful with it. And if not, just cover it up with a little bit of other glass. Kind of like theater, you know? Add a costume onto it. Okay, so now we have a little bit of purple and yellow. We're going to heat up the back of the bead and the ends of the beads. Get a nice heat to all of the bead, and we're going to go, okay, what's next? Well, we want to make an eye, of course. So let's heat up an area because we're going to kind of poke a hole a little bit in it. And we're just pressing in a little bit with whatever you have. You can use any sort of item that will press in, and it could be the end of a mandrel even, a 1/16, a 3/32, that would be a big eye. And you can decide how much of an eye you want. Do you want black? Do you want to do a white dot or a colored dot and then a black dot? It is all okay. So I forgot to get the black stringer ready, so let me just get a little bit of that while I'm keeping this warm. And I just heat it up a little bit, and I'm pulling some. And I'm letting it cool. And then I'm flame cutting it. So we're letting that cool. And I'm debating, do I want to make the eye fancier, or do I want to leave it like this? And I have just a little bit of blue glass. That's gray. Let's go with something more blue. Let's take this old stringer here. This is actually a little piece of Devarty glass. Can you believe it? And let's thin it out a little bit. So I'm just pushing in, pulling out. When it's warm, heat up the back of the bead. And I'm going to add a little dot of this right into that divot. So there's a tiny bit of color in there. And then I'm going to add a little bit of black. And this has a little hook on the end. I'm going to try and get that hook off first. Okay. Heat up the back again because what the heck, we can. And then we add a little bit of a black dot to where the rest of the eye is. And you know me, I tend to add eyelashes and stuff like that. That's up to you. I'm trying to keep it a little bit more simple. But I see that it's still a little bit plain, so I could add a little bit, I could add a little more of a belly. I could see that, or why don't we add just a few little dots or something like that to them, and we still have some of this purple. Let's tie it all together. I'm going to thin this out a little bit. So we have a skinnier stringer. We'll add some little polka dots because seahorses should be polka dotted, you know? Just adding a few for a little decoration. Ties in the color a little better. And it's kind of fun to do too. Why not, huh? I am just kind of going a little bit haphazardly. I'm not going to add it onto his face because then it might look like he has youthful problems, or she. But I am semi-melting them in and heating the back again and the ends again. Getting a lot of heat sunk into there. And this is your little seahorse. Hope you have fun making one like it. Take care. See you soon. Oh, and I need to turn this off. Thanks for watching. Bye.